Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we have a slew of wide receiver news and rumors as the Steelers continue to look for help inside their wide receiver room before the start of the 2025 NFL season. At the top of today's show, we're going to be talking about Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who was considering signing with the Steelers, ending up signing with the 49ers today. Then we'll get into a report claiming that the Pittsburgh Steelers, quote-unquote, checked in on a trade for Raiders receiver Jakobi Meyers. And then we'll be discussing the possibility of the Steelers maybe considering bringing back Diontae Johnson for this season. Before we get into all the wide receiver discussion today, guys, make sure you click that subscribe button, because if Omar Khan makes a move at this position today or any other position, if they make more roster moves, we're going to have another video for you guys later in the day today. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're going to be going live if it's a big enough name. We have breaking news coverage every single time the Steelers make a big move. So for daily extensive Steelers coverage here on YouTube for free, make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now. So Ari Meirov here had the report this morning saying, source, the 49ers are signing veteran wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who was just released by Seattle. Valdes-Scantling was choosing between Pittsburgh and San Francisco. All right, so I think what this came down to, guys, is San Francisco pretty much offered MVS a bigger role, at least to start the season, than what the Steelers were offering. I think the Steelers were offering MVS pretty much a backup wide receiver 4 role, somebody that could be a legitimate X-wide receiver option for this team if DK Metcalf went down with an injury. But San Francisco has a situation right now in their receiver room where there's a lot of injuries. There's players suspended. Ayuk is on IR, so he's going to be missing the first 4 weeks of the year. Demarcus Robinson is suspended. He'll miss the first several games of the year as well. And then Jordan Watkins is also dealing with an injury. So Juwan Jennings, we'll see how his situation kind of plays out here in the weeks to come. But he's currently not practicing with the team. He's currently looking for a new contract extension. Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, and Sky Moore round out the rest of the group. So MVS is going to have a legitimate role as at least a wide receiver 3 to start the season for them, as a deep threat to open things up in the intermediate level for Pearsall and Jennings. I think it's a good fit. I wish MVS the best of luck. I would have liked to see him here as the wide receiver 4 in Pittsburgh. I actually thought that his connection with Rodgers, his skill set, all that stuff would have made him a good wide receiver 4 option here in Pittsburgh. But of course, he ends up going to San Francisco instead. And something that I want people to understand here about the dynamic at the receiver room here in Pittsburgh is I don't think Pittsburgh's looking for like a bona fide number 2 receiver. At least they're not actively seeking one out. I really do think Pittsburgh is fine with Roman Wilson as the number 2 receiver and Calvin Austin III as the number 3 receiver, at least in terms of the total snaps that these guys are going to be getting this year. All right, Roman Wilson is going to be filling that quote-unquote Van Jefferson role that Van played last year, where he got the second most snaps. He was out there on early downs. He's a run blocker. He's asked to run crossers, have reliable hands, stuff like that. And I think Roman can play that role better than Van Jefferson did last year. Then you got Calvin Austin III, who's that passing downs weapon, somebody that can get open to all 3 levels of the field, really good route runner, great ball tracking ability, down the field, can take the top off the defense, can run after the catch as well. He is your passing down threat. And I think that the Steelers feel like these 2 guys fit into those roles very, very nicely. And because of that, I think what Pittsburgh is looking for here is not somebody to replace these guys as a starter, but somebody that can complement the room and somebody that can be a wide receiver 4, maybe play a rotational role, but is mostly there to be there as a backup X receiver in case DK Metcalf gets injured. And Gabe Davis certainly fits that bill, but he certainly has health concerns. The Steelers have brought him in for 2 separate free agency visits, still haven't signed him to a deal. Now that MVS is off the market, I could see the Steelers revisiting that. But obviously with that knee injury that he had in Jacksonville last year and all the visits that he's had with a number of different teams, nobody has been willing to pick him up. So my guess is the knee situation isn't great there with Gabe Davis, but I think the interest that the Steelers have shown in Davis and in MVS shows you exactly the type of receiver that they're looking for. They're looking for a wide receiver 4 that can replace DK Metcalf at the X if he gets injured, because currently if Metcalf goes down, you don't have anybody that is a capable X wide receiver. So that's the kind of missing piece to this wide receiver room that I think the Steelers want to add. Now, it also appears, though, that Aaron Rodgers has been putting on his recruiting hat, especially when it comes to players that he knows. All right, we got a report earlier this week from Sports Illustrated that claims that Rodgers made a direct call to the Green Bay Packers asking for the availability of wide receiver Romeo Doubs, who he played with back in 2022. He said, Bill Huber from Sports Illustrated said this earlier this week, Aaron Rodgers called the Packers on Monday, one day before roster cuts. Interestingly, he asked about the status of receiver Romeo Doubs. So I certainly think that a Doubs trade could still happen, guys. I think that that is something that is still very possible. I do think that the Packers would want probably around a 5th-round pick in exchange for Doubs because Matt LaFleur has said that they don't have any plans on trading him. But I will say, you look at Dobbs' profile and the receiver room there in Green Bay, he's a backup receiver. So if the Green Bay Packers can get a 5th-round pick for him, I don't think that's something the Packers would necessarily say no to. So I think that Dobbs is absolutely still a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I also think Allen Lazard, who currently plays for the New York Jets, played with Rodgers with the New York Jets just last season, is also a possibility. Lazard has had a tough time connecting with Justin Fields there in New York. The Jets are another one of these teams that have been in the veteran receiver market. And if they can get a 7th-round pick out of Lazard, I think the Jets would probably take that. You take a look last year, Lazard had 37 catches with Aaron Rodgers with the Jets, 530 yards and 6 touchdowns. So if you're looking to add, a guy that can play X if DK goes down, somebody that has established chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, I guess you could do worse than Allen Lazard as your wide receiver 4 heading into the season, and maybe he can play a little bit of a red zone role as well. Lazard, I think, is not a very exciting option. He's not the best player in the world. I think there's better options out there for the Steelers to consider, but for a 7th-round pick, I think they could do worse than bringing in Lazard here in Pittsburgh. So who's your preferred Rodgers reunion between Romeo Doubs and Allen Lazard? Would you rather trade a 5th for Romeo Doubs, a guy with a little bit of a drop issue and some concussion concerns type RD, or would you rather go with Allen Lazard for a 7th-round pick type AL? Down there in the comments section. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Harry's. And while I'm talking about Harry's, go down there in the comments section and let me know which former Rodgers receiver you would still like to add to the Steelers wide receiver room. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Harry's. And let's face it, guys, buying razors in today's market absolutely sucks. The quality products that are out there are super expensive, and when you try to save yourself a couple of bucks and not have to drain your bank account in order to get a quality shave, you get razors that dull quickly and irritate your skin. That's why I switched to Harry's, and you can get Harry's trial set today for only $8, plus you get a free gift at harrys.com/chat. With Harry's, you get a barbershop quality shave with German-engineered blades honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without any tugging. But what makes Harry's the brand I trust is you get the quality shave without having to break the bank. Harry's owns their own factory in Germany, so there's no middlemen involved, which allows Harry's to pass down the savings to the consumer. And if you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right, no questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving Harry's a shot. And guys, I'm super excited that we are partnering with Harry's here on Steelers Talk because I've been using their products for years, all right? Obviously, everyone starts shaving when they're in high school or, especially getting into college. And, at that point in your life, you just don't have a lot of money to spend on quality shaving products. And we all don't want to be dealing with the dull razors and all this stuff that comes with the affordable brands. But Harry's is fantastic because you get that barbershop quality shave, but you also don't have to break the bank to get it. So Harry's is the absolute best, guys. I couldn't recommend this brand anymore. I also love their other products. I use their shaving gel and their aftershave balm as well. It's absolutely fantastic. So for limited time only, guys, our listeners can get Harry's trial set for only $8 plus a free gift at harrys.com/chat. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to receive our exclusive discount. After your purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. A big shout out to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Moving on to this rumor here from Andrew Filipponi and Adam Crowley from 93.7 The Fan this morning, where they are reporting that the Steelers, quote-unquote, checked in on disgruntled Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers, and the Steelers asked the Raiders to eat some of Meyers' salary in the trade. All right, so my take on this rumor, guys, that the Steelers called the Raiders, I absolutely believe that they probably did. All right, they are in the receiver market. And I think for the right price, they would be willing to go get a guy like Jakobi Meyers, who's really good over the intermediate middle of the field, really great hands, savvy route runner, tough run blocker. He fits what the Steelers would be looking for in their wide receiver 2 in this offense. But although I think a trade for Meyers is still possible until either A, the Steelers get a different receiver, or B, the Raiders end up getting a long-term extension done with Meyers, I won't say it's exactly likely to happen. Again, like we talked about earlier, guys, I think Pittsburgh really does believe in Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III, and they spent a third-round draft pick on Roman Wilson. And if they get a guy like Jakobi Meyers and they don't use Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin III in the trade, you'd have to bench one of those guys, and my guess is Roman Wilson would be the odd man out, which means he's essentially spending the first 2 years of his rookie contract on the bench. I don't think the Steelers want to waste a third-round investment in a player this early into his NFL career, and I don't think they want to designate him as a backup after he missed his entire rookie campaign. And after having a really good preseason and training camp, I think the Steelers feel like Roman has earned that opportunity to try and prove himself as this team's number 2 receiver. Now, a potential solution to this problem, guys, is that the Steelers could include a wide receiver in the trade for Meyers, all right? You could include either Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin III and create a legitimate wide receiver trio, which would include Jakobi Meyers and DK Metcalf leading the way. The receiver between Calvin and Roman that I would include in the deal, I would personally offer up Calvin Austin III, all right? He's on the last year of his deal. I don't think the Steelers are too keen on bringing him back next year unless he has a true breakout season this year. I think Roman is a better long-term fit for this team, plus he's under contract for longer. You got Calvin, who is very similar to the skill set of a Tyler Lockett, who Geno Smith really played well with last year and over the last 3 seasons in Seattle. And then I think if you can throw in a sweetener of a 4th-round pick, which the Steelers have multiple of next year, I think that this trade makes sense for both sides if the Raiders are willing to come to the table. And then I would be willing to pay Jakobi somewhere between $18 to $23 million per season in order to make this deal happen. Jakobi Meyers, in my opinion, guys, is one of the most underrated receivers in the game today. I think he's a better long-term fit for this team than Calvin Austin III is because of his ability to run block, and because you have multiple 4th-round picks, I think the Steelers can afford to give one to the Las Vegas Raiders in this deal. So that's where I'm at right now with this potential trade for Jakobi Meyers. Guys, I won't say it's necessarily likely at this point, but that's what I would give up. Some other potential trade targets that I think are probably less likely, guys. Tyreek Hill, a true dark horse at this point, might be more available at the trade deadline if Roman Wilson isn't up to snuff. Then you got Juwan Jennings, who might still be available, but it seems like the 49ers want to keep him around. And Alec Pierce, we've talked about it on the show. I'm not convinced the Colts are actually shopping him, despite some reporting out there that they are. So I don't really see the Steelers adding a wide receiver to this year. I don't think a trade is necessarily likely. I think it's far more likely that they add somebody that was just released as a wide receiver 4 that can also play X if DK Metcalf goes down with an injury. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Would you accept this trade for Jakobi Meyers? Would you trade Calvin Austin III and a 4th-round pick next year to get Meyers here to Pittsburgh? Type A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Now moving on here to Diontae Johnson, where some are suggesting that the Steelers should bring back their former number 2 receiver now that he has been released by the Cleveland Browns. Noah Strackbein from Sports Illustrated says the Steelers should at least consider bringing back DJ. This is what he had to say in his article this morning. What would be better than getting Aaron Rodgers, a wide receiver that is an elite route runner, someone he knows is always going to be open and that he can have perfect timing with? Only to combine it with Metcalf being an elite receiver and 3 very fast slot players in Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and Scotty Miller. Nothing. Johnson remains the prototypical wide receiver for exactly what the Steelers need this season. Again, if he's able to still play at a high level. This is all the other stuff aside. Obviously, Johnson caused some issues when he was in Pittsburgh, having moments where he didn't put forth his best effort during plays, fought with teammates and coaches in the locker room, and was eventually moved on from as the team tried to remove all distractions from their facility. But here they are, still looking for a Johnson replacement, and with his latest release, they should at least consider him. Personally, guys, I don't think the Steelers will consider bringing back Diontae Johnson, with all due respect to Noah. And honestly, I'm not sure if he is the fit that Noah seems to think that he is inside the Steelers offense this year. First of all, the Steelers got rid of Diontae Johnson, the person, just as much as they got rid of Diontae Johnson, the football player, last year. All right, they thought that he was not the best person to keep in their locker room. They didn't think he was the best mentor for George Pickens, who they of course traded in his own right this offseason due to personality and behavioral stuff. And I'm not sure if they want to bring that back and inject that back into a wide receiver room this year and into a culture where the Steelers feel very good about their locker room culture heading into this year. Second of all, Diontae Johnson just doesn't run block, and that's not a fit for what Arthur Smith does here in Pittsburgh. He expects his number one and number two receivers in terms of the total amount of snaps to run block and be a part of the run blocking scheme. And Diontae Johnson doesn't give effort. He doesn't have a lot of play strength overall. This is one of the reasons why they traded Diontae away, and then they used a third-round pick in Roman Wilson to replace him, is because Roman is an excellent run blocker. He really fits that role of the number two receiver in the Arthur Smith offense, whereas Diontae Johnson really doesn't. So I don't really see his fit working out here as a wide receiver 2. He'd have to be a wide receiver 4. And third, he doesn't really fit Pittsburgh's biggest weakness either, in terms of he doesn't address it, right? Like we've been talking about, the Steelers want a receiver that can play X if DK Metcalf goes down with an injury. Diontae Johnson doesn't fit that bill. He's an undersized wide receiver, and if DK Metcalf goes down, you still have the issue of having 3 undersized wide receivers out there and none of them capable of playing a true X. So I don't think Diontae fixes that issue that the Steelers are trying to address right now. And then fourth, if you're looking for a true route running threat, that's Calvin Austin III. I mean, just go watch the film on Calvin Austin III last year, guys. He was toasting people one-on-one in man coverage. The steps that he took as a route runner last year were incredible. He's got incredible foot speed. He plays with really good technique. Of course, he's got that great long speed to run away from people. He can threaten to all 3 levels of the field. Like, if you're looking for somebody to trust on those third down situations for Aaron Rodgers, somebody that can get open versus man, somebody that can play both inside and out, Calvin, I think, is actually better as an outside receiver than he is in the slot. And, I think Calvin fits that role of the quote-unquote passing down threat and the route runner in the Steelers offense. So I don't even think Diontae Johnson would be that guy for this team if they brought him in. So I just don't really see the fit personally with Diontae Johnson, whether it's from a personality standpoint or whether it's on the field. And honestly, I think Diontae Johnson's probably cooked. He's been released by a number of different NFL teams over the last year, and I just don't think that he's the caliber of player that maybe some Steelers fans remember back in his days here in Pittsburgh. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you bring back Diontae Johnson on a cheap deal? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, it is a very fast and very hard no, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Now, before I go here, I do want to talk about 2 more potential wide receiver possibilities for the Pittsburgh Steelers, starting with A.T. Perry. A.T. was not claimed on waivers today. He was released by the Denver Broncos earlier this week. He's formerly with the New Orleans Saints, and he came out of college from Wake Forest, and he was somebody here, guys, that 25 years old, over 200 pounds, 6'5", has really good ball skills. And at that size, guys, he's actually got really quick feet, and his route running ability at that size is actually pretty darn good. So if you're looking for somebody that brings a little bit more of a versatile route tree, somebody with some upside here at only 25 years old and can be a legitimate wide receiver 4 for you heading into the year, I think A.T. Perry is somebody that you could take a look at. Now, injuries have held him back here during the preseason this year. He missed the first several weeks of camp, but he has returned to practice the last 2 weeks, finished out the preseason, and then even last year in New Orleans couldn't stay healthy, which led to his release. But back in 2023, man, A.T. Perry showed some legitimately promising flashes as an ex-receiver there in New Orleans, all right? And he still has that size. He still has those quick feet. He's somebody that I would seriously be considering right now if I were GM Omar Khan, if I'm looking for an ex-receiver as a backup to fill out the rest of this wide receiver room. And then Kendrick Bourne, somebody that has really thrived in Shanahan-style offenses in his career, has now been released by the New England Patriots, according to Tom Pelissero, and they're there's some reporting getting out there, I'm being told that the Steelers could be showing interest in Kendrick Bourne. San Francisco is also showing interest in Bourne, so they might take the Steelers' top 2 wide receiver targets after roster cuts in both MVS and Kendrick Bourne. The 49ers love them some Kendrick Bourne because he blocks his ass off. He's tough. He's a savvy route runner, and he's big enough to play X if the Steelers need him to do that. So I can see why the Steelers would be interested in Kendrick Bourne. We'll see where he ends up going. But in terms of the wide receiver situation, guys, I know there's a lot of people out there that are upset that maybe the Steelers haven't gotten a legit number 2 receiver after trading away George Pickens. But if it makes you guys feel any better, I think the right way to look at the Steelers offense and their weaponry this year is to look at Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth as the number 2 and number 3 weapons on this team, with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin being your number 4 and your number 5, because I think in total targets, in terms of yardage, stuff like that, DK Metcalf is obviously going to be the number 1 target in this offense. It's not going to be close. But then after that, I think Jonnu and Pat are probably going to be the 2nd and 3rd most productive players on this offense, and that is by design, guys. The Steelers want to live in 12 and 13 personnel. They want to play heavier and bigger than their opponents. They want to have that matchup advantage. And, because of that, Roman and Calvin, are not going to be as important of pieces as secondary receivers as some other teams in the league that play way more 11 personnel, play way more 3 receiver sets. So I think the right way to think about it, guys, is you got Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, 2 legitimate tight end receiving threats that are going to be used quite heavily in this offense and are going to be productive. And then you got Roman, who we already talked about, is a really good fit in terms of the role. He's a run blocker. He's got great acceleration and speed to win on crossing routes. He's got reliable hands. I think Roman will be just fine as a number 2 receiver and a number 4 weapon in this offense. And then we already talked about what Calvin can do as a passing down specialist as a weapon in this offense as well. I think when you look at it from that perspective, this weapons group is actually pretty darn good. And there is a world where this offense here and this group of weapons is actually really functional and all the puzzle pieces fit together here. And that really is the hope for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are hoping that Roman Wilson, who is unproven, but he undeniably does have potential and this team does believe in, and then Calvin Austin III can fill their roles adequately. And hopefully, with Aaron Rodgers here, he's not as first read dependent as guys like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson were. I'm hoping that he's going to be able to see Calvin Austin III get open more often than Russ and Fields were able to last year, which is going to lead to more production from him. It's going to lead to more production from Roman. It's going to lead to hopefully some great production from the tight ends as well. And hopefully it's just going to lead to overall a very productive offense here with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. So grade it for me down there in the comments section. Grade the Steelers' offensive weaponry as a whole heading into the year. So wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. Grade the group for me down there in the comment section, A, B, C, D, or F. I think going into the year, it's a B with potential to get even higher than that, guys. I love DK Metcalf. I love, the schematic plan that the Steelers have, trying to live in 12 and 13 personnel and bully teams on a weekly basis. I think this team is built to do that and play that style of football. And I think the only missing piece, like I've been discussing, guys, is that number 4 receiver that can come in case of a DK Metcalf injury. Other than that, I think this group is pretty set heading into the year. And if Roman Wilson stinks, guys, you can address the wide receiver 2 position at the trade deadline when better names will be available for you guys at that point. So that'll be it for today's show, guys. I know today was a longer, way more extensive video than even we put out here on Steelers Talk. So thank you guys so much for bearing with me. If we get breaking news later in the day, we will make sure to get you guys a video on this channel. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.